Hi everyone, McBeard here, back finally with another video. I wanted to make a video about a deck that I've been working on. I've been trying to work on a Mulligan archetype, and it's been a very busy week. I wanted to wait for the patch to come and go before I started to dive into deck videos again, just to make sure that everything I was showing you wasn't immediately obsolete. And it's been a very busy week because of Gwent Slam, and things will continue to be busy for me. But I do have time for you, YouTube family, to talk about some decks that I've been working on, some stuff I've been experimenting with. This time we're talking about Mulligan. This is a Francesca-based deck that is built off of an idea that I explored many patches ago called Hidden Roach, which involved buffing Roach, mulliganing Roach away, and then ultimately playing a gold at the very end of the game to bring out a very buffed Roach. That idea is fairly sound, and I've gotten a couple of games in that way, but this deck actually functions outside of that combo. It's just one of the fun things you can do in this very unorthodox big body dash mulligan is what I'm calling it. So, codename Hidden Roach. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here is the latest in Hidden Roach technology. But like I said, this is working like a mulligan deck and is working to really abuse the Riot officers a little bit near the end of the game as they function as a win condition on top of the big gold bodies that you'll be able to produce. So I've been working on this list off and on stream, and I've been talking with somebody in my chat named Herfnaher, who has been running a sort of similar mulligan list that involves using Riot officers and Geralt, standard Geralt, 13 strength Geralt, to pull off some really nutty tempo near the end of the game. It's very hard to surpass and sometimes even worth going down a card for. But let's talk about the deck. So the deck in general is a very, very thin deck that is meaning to get down to the last few cards in the deck, which are all giant gold cards, being able to mulligan Roach away and then play those gold cards, or ultimately just have Roach buffed a little bit in the deck at some point to get that extra tempo and get some value out of your Hawker supports. So we'll start with the Hawker supports. The Hawker supports are the flexible spot in this bronze lineup. Everything else in this lineup, as far as working with Ciri Dash, I would strongly recommend. However, the Hawker support is meant to buff Roach or buff officers to make officers even that much more of a tempo play. You try to take rounds after your opponent's pass, and you can do some pretty interesting things with Johnny. So Hawker support does work. It works on buffing Roach for a late game bomb, but you can easily buff officers, and I would recommend doing that. But this deck is very thin, so you want to rely on generally, you want to mulligan away your first lights because you want all of your mercenaries to pull it. And because you're Francesca and you're running a marching orders, it's very easy to get all of your mercenaries out in the first round. And because it's easy to do that, it's easy to see your Blue Mountain Commandos, which would be likely either played from hand, but hopefully played from a first light. You'll get a couple of officers coming down, mulliganing away large cards like Geralt or Ciri Dash. So they're just huge plays, and ultimately, especially if you get to hit the Blue Mountain Commandos early, Eilerin will join you. One of the reasons why the Hawker support can be flexed is that this could easily be an elf, which makes it a little bit more reliable to get Eilerin out. Eilerin is also a buff option for the supports, but really not that reliable. You're most likely going to get your only chance to get her out in the first round, so mulligan her carefully. But generally, yeah, you are using your first lights with your mercs, you're getting your Blue Mountain Commandos out, your first lights are pulling additional units out of the deck, ideally all of your supports, so you get all your buffs onto your officers or Roach before the final mulligan with Francesca. Now, this gets a little bit fun when you start off the game with Ciri Dash in hand and Johnny in hand. Also, Francesca can easily procure you Johnny, which means that you're always able to have Johnny on hand if you need him. If you don't have either of these cards, it gets a little less fun. But through all the mulligan, you can likely get one of these cards, and Francesca can find the missing piece. What Johnny does is discard Ciri Dash, puts Ciri Dash back into the deck, and then gives you one of your opponent's gold. A great way to start off the game, in that you will be having 5 golds because you will get all the way through your deck, and Ciri Dash will also be 13, meaning you'll have 2 13 strength golds at the end of the game for your officers to start juggling before you finally drop them and potentially trigger Roach in the process. It's a little bit difficult. Some of the decisions are tough, so you're trying to just get out of the first round. It's okay if you go down a card, but you don't want to get blown out too much. And if that happens, if you're up in cards, like you've had to go second, it's fine to pass if the round has gone a little bit longer. But generally, you should have the power you need to push ahead of a strong start from an opponent, use Eskel liberally. Get rid of that Enforcer. Get rid of that, other troublesome setup card, Warship, what have you. Mahaka Marauder, let's say. Anything that is, especially Farseer if you're able to. Anything that threatens your tempo early on. So use Eskel there if you have him available. Aglais is a very good card right now in that there's a lot of strong silver cards that most factions are using. Skellig is using Restore right now. A lot of factions are still using Marigold's Hailstorm right now. You will find, your Thunderbolt Potion here or your Fog there, depending on who you're playing against. And sometimes there might be just a really bomb silver card that somebody uses that you may have just a great application for, like something weird like a Scorch or a Summoning Circle, or even a Becker's Twisted Mirror in the perfect situation where you can take advantage of your 1-point mercenary. So Aglais is in here just because she has a lot of application. She's very good. And then your big cards are Ciri Dash, which is 13 early on because of Johnny, and Geralt, which is 13 all the time. You can get Ciri Dash higher than 13 if you play her in the second round as well. So there are options, but really having them at 13 and being able to juggle them with the officers late game is what it's all about. So on top of all of this, you do have Yavin where, if you're able to buff up a Riot officer to like 7 or 10 points and you play Yavin, you have a number that you can easily hit by mulliganing away, a 7-point officer mulliganing on Geralt. That's a 20-point bronze card. So you'll take that, and that might be able to surge you ahead after your opponent passes if you are under that magic number that the Riot officer is able to create for you. Late game, the officers are very good as well. You want to hold them until you absolutely need to play them. But really, it's not so much about the officers in the late game as much as it is just having Geralt and Ciri side by side, maybe a little Roach to join you. So you play a long round 1, or until you get blown out, then you pass with a card up if that's possible. Maybe Yavin makes that possible. Or you go down a card to steal it, and you have a short round 2. Or you bleed. Actually, bleeding is probably better in round 2 because your short round is very strong in round 3, especially if you have an officer, Ciri and Geralt, and not a lot left in the deck. I'm going to show you a little bit of gameplay that I just covered right now against a very strong spy list. I feel like this actually showcases what this deck can do, how it can fight for the first round, how it can gracefully step out, use Roach, use officers for fantastic tempo, and just close out the game. Check it out. Thanks for watching, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. So a little Mulligan versus Spies, and this is a pretty standard spy list. I don't think there's too much out of the ordinary here, what you would expect normally as far as gold cards. I'm starting off with a pretty decent Mulligan here. I start off by getting rid of the Blue Mountain Commandos because I don't really want them in the deck, and I would prefer to not have... I'd like to get them out with the Merc. I also Mulligan away the First Light since I want the Merc to pull it, and then finally the Merc because the Marching Orders will pull it as well. I want to stop my opponent's setup here, and I see a good opportunity here. This means that I can't get Roach in hand or buff Roach, but I think it allows me to at least get a leg up on the matchup, and then I can start pushing a little bit more. So I'm looking for opportunities to kind of really sort of take hold of this round and start to do the stuff that I want to do, thin my deck, get Eilerin out, get my Blue Mountain Commandos out, and use Johnny and stuff like that. So I feel like actually weathering the front row is the pressure I need because it's going to it's one more step that counteracts his setup.
Why have you summoned me?
A shame I have no time.
If not by strength, then by stealth.
Pretty standard stuff here. I imagine that there weren't a lot of great choices for that particular emissary, so the infiltrator had to come down probably a little early, probably on a smaller unit than he would prefer. So we go right into rallying, and we get another Merc on the rally, which now changes marching orders for us. We get to rally out again, get a support. Now, we don't have Roach in hand, so Officer is the next best target to buff with the support.
My son.
So we're going to be seeing that line of play since Roach is just not in our hand. It never will be. Clears the fog, but he hasn't really been able to get a stranglehold on this round yet, and I want to see commitment. We're going to go ahead and see if we can rally out the Blue Mountain Commandos. we weren't able to do that yet. So we go ahead and give another buff to the officer. The officer is now a 10-point bronze that gains 13 points on Mulligan and Geralt. So we're now actually in steel territory, but we still want to get more elves on the field here. Marching Orders now pulls the Blue Mountain Commando, which procs Eilerin. So now we're in a pretty good spot in the round.
We've met. I don't recall.
And we talked about commitment. There's your commitment. This is a huge play from my opponent. Committing Iris, not giving me any chance to stop it, surging ahead 12 points on me. Do I want to stay in this round or not? 12 points is not nothing if I play into a card here. The best option I have here is probably the officer, but I go ahead and I play Johnny onto Ciri Dash, opting to stay just a bit behind, picking up his Menno, which is good because I'm holding a spy. And this is why Johnny is fun, okay? This is why Johnny is fun. You get 5 gold.
Please wait, Your Excellency. I'm falling behind. A shame I have no time.
And that last ping. Quite a lead here at this point. 28 points. Not really something I can even go into. Even though I have a 23-point play on the officer, it still didn't really seem worth it if I was going to commit that kind of thing and then just have my opponent pass on me. So I'm rather going to take the card that I have. I am a card up at this point. I do have a spy in hand plus my own, plus Menno to kill Yavin. So I should be able to lead off with the spy. I draw 2 officers, which is actually fantastic, as you can see my deck right now. Ciri Dash, Aglais, and Hawker support, as my opponent plays his spy first. I'm going to follow up with the spy. My issue here in this matchup and the Nilfgaardian matchup generally is that Aglais generally doesn't have a spell to play. There are not a lot of spells that Nilfgaard spies runs.
The Empire will be victorious.
He's going to Menno me, and I'm going to Menno him, and we're going to be tied, but now the round has progressed a little bit longer, and my short round at this point is actually quite awesome. And if I really wanted to get that Hawker support, I could get it by using Francesca on Aglais. All tied up, my opponent continues to play in. Massive plays right now. Rainfarn coming in with Joachim. Getting a 16-point enforcer. I'm just taking a look just to make sure he's got nothing in the graveyard that I can use with Aglais, because he does not. So I'm down by 20, and I have a 23-point play. Might as well get ahead here. I don't want my opponent to take a favorable pass on me. I want him to be kind of surprised that I was able to put that out. But he thinks that's just, you know, that's his trick. It's been done now. Maybe he can push a little bit further. But I'm looking at another 17-point officer that could mulligan into Geralt and create another 17-point officer. But I think I'm more interested in... So I go for this because this does get me ahead. And I do draw Geralt again. I could have drawn the Hawker support. But I'm actually okay drawing the Hawker support. So in this situation here, we're even on cards. I think I'm most interested in using Francesca to get that Hawker support in my hand. Put Aglais back. Maybe just draw her a little bit later because she's just 9 points right now. And the Hawker support actually represents a future 20-point officer into a 13-point gold card. Plus, of course, the support gets the buff as well. My opponent's just trying to get ahead of me, not really realizing that I had this kind of output. 20-point bronze with a 13-point gold. We are going to end things off here. One final massive push here. 14 points ahead by my opponent, but it's not enough. The officer is just too beefy. And we draw into Aglais, knowing that Geralt and Ciri will be our last 2 cards. Even if we want to mulligan Aglais away, we will get 2 13-point cards. Our opponent has no cards. We're up a card, and it's a big card. Now, Aglais can pull Vanimar's Overdose, but it's not really worth it in a round this short. We're just going to go ahead and hope that 26 points is enough. And this is probably as big of a play as you can expect. A gold card on the top here for my opponent. Vikovar Medic doesn't give him a lot of great stuff to look at. The best thing he can pull is support. He has no card in his hand, of course. Officer is useless as well. So he needs to pull a mercenary or an emissary to get something of value, but will it be enough to actually take 13 points?
No door is closed to me.
It is not enough. And at the time of the video, I actually thought that was a negative one. I played Ciri Dash and my opponent forfeited. Didn't mean to BM, of course. But there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video, everybody. Like I said, there's a lot of fun ways you can win with this deck. Usually using the officers on the big bodies at the end is how you're going to pull it out. But if you're able to get buffs on Roach and sneakily tuck it back into the deck, it's just a little trick that wasn't really shown in this game here, but more so the fundamental ways to win with Ciri Dash and Geralt were shown here with the officers. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.